Hey, welcome everyone. Today we are 4 weeks into Flourish. You're in your group right now. We're glad you're here. We've heard nothing but great stories of how you guys, people in their groups, are having really good, healthy
Just great
conversations. And so today is no different. We're part of our Flourish series, which is when we flourish, other people can flourish. It's really a vision that God has put on our hearts. They're really not just a 5-part teaching series on Sunday, but it launches us into 2 years of vision of accomplishing some great things that I really believe God has put on our hearts.
Yeah, and it's not like short-term changes that we're going to make at the church. Like, no, this is a long-term vision that's going to have lasting impact.
Yeah.
We're talking generational impact. And so we're going to unpack real quick those kind of three big areas of missions, ministries, and facilities. That these are really kind of like that backbone piece of what we're going to flourish in, right?
Absolutely. Over the next 2 years, beginning right now, we're going to just really keep driving forward. And let's just talk ministries real quick. We know the importance of healthy spiritual lives here at the home.
Yeah.
So that is next gen. That is our kids. That is the youth ministry. That's our grandkids, our great grandkids. That is that. And then that's us, like adults, adult discipleship opportunities, which is our groups and getting on teams and growing as individuals. Yeah. And we cannot stop that. And so we have to be healthy inside the home, discipled, spiritually growing. And so over the next 2 years, we'll be very intentional about staffing, training, putting our monies in areas that will help us develop and grow. And so
that's the we flourish part of we got to flourish to help others flourish. When we start talking about others flourishing, that looks like a big area is missions for us as kingdom builders. It's 25 plus missionaries, it's 10 plus missionaries or missions organizations, Convoy, One Hope, local missions through the food pantries or the homeless shelters, the school systems, right? Helping those guys. We want to continue them to flourish in those areas. Also, let's not forget, we're planting down in St. Elmo. This is
expanding opportunities and prospects.
So exciting. So exciting. So that's local, global impact, reaching people for God's kingdom builders. And then, of course, we got facilities.
And then specifically in this initiative, we really know that we need to tackle some of our facilities. And so Matt Toon is an expansion of just adding more space, whether that's parking, auditorium, kids space, all of that. And in your book, I think it was on page 33, 34, 35, it unpacks some of that. You'll see some pictures in Charleston. It's lower level, complete renovation of our kids space so we can continue to invest in the next generation in Charleston, and some outdoor relational space, because we know the heart of the kingdom of God is relationships. And that means not just relationship with God, but relationship with one another. So we got to create relational space. And so, so ministries, our missions, and our facilities. This is all part of Flourish, and it really all just intertwined.
Yeah, it's really like that's why we're inviting everybody on this journey for the future of our church. And it's not just financially, but it's a commitment with our lives. It's like this isn't just about giving money, but it's building a place where others can find that belonging, that purpose through the Fields Church.
Yeah. And so we're doing some good biblical teaching, Old Testament, of some individuals who have really helped people flourish. And last week we were looking at King David and really how he wanted to lean in and be a part of being generous toward building the temple. But we also discovered that it's not a one size fit all. Like everybody has their place. We're going to talk more about that today. But really, it's like, what is God asking us to do in any kind of forward movement in God's kingdom?
Yeah, and we've looked at Noah, living life on mission. We've looked at Abraham on trusting God. Today, we get to talk about a man named Moses, and as he led the people of Israel into sacrificial giving.
Yeah, so Moses is one of those just incredible leaders of our faith, found in the book of Exodus. And a great example, because there's a lot of great Moses stories, just like we talked last week. There's a lot of David stories. Yeah. But you got to, the one that we're going to land on is where he was really helping the people build the tabernacle. But you remember, he's the one that led the people out of slavery. And Pharaoh, let my people go. I was not going to sing. Anyway, so he led the people out of slavery into freedom. And in their transition of going from slavery into freedom, they really knew that they were going to need to honor, worship God, and they were going to build a tabernacle, which we've talked about, that it is a mobile worship facility. It was their tent. It was because they were always on the move, but they knew that they needed to build this tabernacle as a place of worship on their journey.
Yeah. Shout out Charleston. They were mobile before we were ever mobile.
That's
They
right.
were the first mobile campus
Of the fields.
of ministry
Yeah.
of the fields.
No, I mean,
Charleston was supposed to know, yeah. But it is. So this tabernacle, though, like the preparation of Moses getting the people rallied, it wasn't just about the tabernacle itself. It really was about the heart behind the giving. And so in Exodus 35 is where we see this story start to unfold. And we see God, he instructs Moses to invite everyone to have this generous heart to give toward building this sacred place.
yeah. And so what we did Sunday was provide you really 8 theological observations from these 2 chapters. So you'll be living in Exodus 35, 36. Strongly encourage you to read them on your own. Like, take time to read these 2 chapters. But for today's sake and for us to kind of get the ball started, let us walk through real quickly those 8 observations, and then you guys, group leaders, unpack those 8 observations and let them talk about it. And so there's those takeaways. And the first one was that we really see that it starts with the fact that they're giving to build this tabernacle. So Moses is saying, hey, we've got to build this. It was just a response to God's command.
Yeah.
And we have to just respond when God asks us to do something. So observation number 1, just respond when God asks you to do something.
That's an easy one. I love the second point, though, is that God used all their stuff, right? Like, because they just came out of slavery. So it's not like you would have thought they would have a bunch of stuff, but they bring in earrings and brooches and all kinds of these personal items to make this place, this holy place. And I love that. It's that reminder that God, it's not that he needs our things, but he chooses to work through the things that we bring as an offering.
Yeah. And he literally used their stuff. He melted down brooches and earrings to use it as a resource. And so, sometimes we have stuff laying around, or we have things in a garage or things in an attic, and we're like, why am I holding on to this? And so anyway, talk about that a little bit. Here's probably a little deeper, like this is pretty deep theologically. They gave because they were so thankful of their freedom.
Oh yeah.
Because they were slaves. Yeah. They've been set free. And so as their act of generosity was really an act of gratitude that I'm no longer slaves. Yeah. And think about you and I as like, we're no longer slaves to our sin. Like we've been set free. Awesome. Like the reality of heaven and hell. And I'm going to heaven because Jesus forgave me of my sins. And so our act of generosity is not, I got to pay some bills. It's, I'm responding to, I am now free.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah,
we probably should have just stopped right there. Like, that's it. Like, that's the one. No, but as we continue, they also gave with their eyes set on the future. And I do like this point because it's that forward vision. And that's what Flourish really is that forward vision. They knew that God's promises were bigger than what they were, bigger than where they were at that very moment. And it's that powerful vision of a future thinking. And who would have ever imagined that the sacrifices they made 3,000-ish years ago would be later. Now we're still celebrating it. We're still talking about their giving, their heart of generosity. Yeah. We still talk about today.
We are in the room today because they built a tabernacle.
Yeah. So powerful.
The 5th observation, so if you're taking notes, the 5th observation is that they really gave out of being prompted by the Spirit and just a stirring of the Spirit. And I like in Exodus, it specifically says that God, they were compelled from the Spirit to give. So it wasn't obligation. It wasn't like they weren't taking anybody in the back room and
breaking it. Yeah, no baseball bats involved.
No, it was like God's going to stir our hearts. And so I think we can learn from that is it wasn't manipulative. It was spirit sensitive. Yeah. And I want us all to be spirit sensitive in this next week. And we're considering right before we make this big commitment, am I sensitive to the Holy Spirit?
That's really good. That's really good. Which leads to everyone had something to contribute. Like that's such an important component. Like it doesn't matter the walk of life. It didn't matter for all these, people. It didn't matter whether they were a tribal leader or they're at the bottom of the serving. Like everybody had something to give. And it's not that everyone gave the same thing either. It was each person gave from what they had. So some people who had gold gave gold. People who had goat hair gave goat hair, right?
Yeah.
It was whatever they had, and it was the focus on the gift is from your heart, from you, not compared to what somebody else is giving. It was what you had, they gave.
And the 7th point piggybacks on that. So they gave from what they had, but also no one was expected to give what they didn't have.
Yeah, correct.
And so I think that's where you and I need to learn not to compare, not to look around the room and go, well, I can't do what that person's doing.
Right.
God's not asking you
No,
to.
correct.
God's not asking you to do what that other person's doing. God's asking you. So you're not expected to give beyond your own means. It's not about comparing ourselves. It's really about giving our best, not
Correct.
somebody else's best.
Correct. And then the finally, kind of this one still blows me away. All these points really do. It's like,
This might be my favorite one.
this is probably a favorite one. So they held a meeting to tell everyone to stop giving. Like, hey, we have too much, like we've met quota. We have too much stuff to build the tabernacle with. And so we need you to quit giving. Imagine, like, this is big. Imagine a community that's so invested that there was that they had an overflowing of generosity, that there was too much.
Yeah, and that's the 100% engagement that we talk about at Flourish. Is when we all do this, it will be overflowing so much we're like, wow. And then maybe we'll hold a meeting and say, stop giving. I mean, wouldn't that be incredible?
Incredible.
So, those are the observations, 8 observations. You guys will unpack those and kind of talk about those. But then I want to fast forward just in the New Testament, because I know sometimes like, oh, that's Old Testament. It's so hard to think about building a tabernacle in the wilderness.
Right.
So Paul then teaches the early church, which is now us.
Yep.
That, in fact, in 2 Corinthians 9, verses 6 and 7, so you guys can open that in a little bit, Paul teaches us to give. God loves a cheerful giver, and we're to give out of our heart, and he encourages each person to give as they've really felt that in their heart. And so that's the same thing with these Israelites, is they were giving what they felt led to give. And here's Paul echoing that and going, you know what God really wants in Flourish is people to be cheerful givers and to give from your heart. And that's it. Like, that's it. There's no obligation. There's no like, oh, I have to hit a number. It's, are you a cheerful giver, and are you giving from your heart?
Yeah, that's really the challenge for us as we flourish, are we going to help others flourish? And this is about making that commitment, not just financially, but it's with our whole life. And I've heard that in my group time and time again, is it's not just a financial thing for that we're exploring as we're flourishing. There's other areas of our life that we can surrender to God. And so it's so good.
So that's the journey we're on in Flourish. And let's just, like, maybe we can learn from Moses. Maybe it was maybe Abraham, maybe Noah, all these people that we've talked about. But I want to just look at you and say, listen, next week, this coming Sunday is Commitment Sunday. And so that's where you and I we have our cards. We're looking at them. You're looking at that gift chart. And I want you to know that remember, it's not the number, it's how you got to that number. And every single gift matters. Yeah. Every gift matters. Yeah. And so don't ever think my stuff, my earring, my stuff, my goat hair is not going to add up. No, absolutely. God says, yes, every gift matters. And so can I encourage you, please do not excuse your out of thinking, well, my stuff doesn't matter. Every gift matters. Every commitment is important, mainly because you're making a commitment to God. It's just so good between you and God. So, hey, can you join me? I know we've already made our commitments. Yep. We shared some of that on Sunday. We've already done that. So now we're inviting you, join us, make your commitment next Sunday. Bring it, be ready. It's going to be powerful.
It is going to be powerful. And speaking of power, I want to share a story that we shared Sunday from Aaron and Paul Brown's great family of ours at the Fields Church in Charleston. And so their story about how they got to that heart of commitment is really good, and their experience here at the Fields Church. So here's Paul and Aaron. As soon as that's done, group leaders will be back to you.
We came into the Fields and basically knew that this is where we wanted to be. It was so inviting. It was so intentional. The kids ministry was wonderful. There were not huddles of people. group together. People would mingle and really kind of get to know and seek out each other. That felt different. There were so many people just smiling, hugging. It was a happy, joyful place. That was a feeling walking in.
We've been at the Fields for a few years now. What we were initially looking for was something that would be a good fit for our daughter, Lily. When we arrived at the Fields, it was evident fairly quickly that they had a kids ministry environment that would help her grow strong relationships. It was engaging, provided opportunities for her to grow in her faith. For us, the Fields provided opportunities to serve, which we've both enjoyed being a part of and grown through. The Fields is welcoming. It doesn't matter whether you're young or old, what walk of life you're currently in or have been through in the past. There's a place where you can come and belong and grow with other members of that community.
They care enough to reach out, care enough to change, care enough to listen.
For me, generosity, when we talk about a tithe, that's not only financial. That is in terms of our time, our resources, a minimum of 10% of our lives dedicated back to God, whether that be financially or through relationships or through the church. With giving specifically, we get to be witness to the things that the church does with that money, whether that be through our local communities or on a national or global scale. When we initially learned that the Fields was going to launch Flourish, we immediately knew that we would want to be involved, but didn't know what that would look like. So individually, we started to pray through that. As we talked about it, we both came to the same amount, but then immediately knew that one of the stumbling blocks would be how to get to that amount. I've taught at Eastern for about 20 years now. Just in the last year, I've taken on a little bit different of an administrative role there and didn't know at the time that that would have any change in salary at Eastern. But we found out earlier this year that there was an unexpected pay increase. After taxes, it ends up being within a few dollars of that amount that God had led us to. It's just further evidence and confirmation or reaffirmation that if we put our trust in Him and prayerfully walk with Him, that He will continue to guide us. It's a wonderful opportunity to be able to give and to be able to give generously. We've come to know the joy in giving. For a number of years, giving felt like an obligation, but once you've discovered that joy in giving, there's really no turning back. When I hear Flourish, I think of new growth and rapid growth. Flourish gives me visions of spring. It's new life breathed into something.
Thriving comes to my mind. It is an excitement. It is a power, a thriving growth that is coming.
We're excited for what the future brings, for the impact that the Fields will have on the Charleston community, on our family, in our friendships and our relationships.
I'm excited for how it's going to change, how it's going to change us, the ways that we're going to continue to grow, the relationships that we will build. I'm excited to see how our community will unify and partner with each other. I see a lot of potential for our church and for our community.